The law that exists as written now is sufficient to stop the shenanigans, and yet they continue. So adding on to that law, is that going to help us or not? And I am cynical enough and seasoned enough in my years of life and witnessing what's taken place in the government, especially at the federal level, through all the agencies that you want to name, the corruption of the principles and ideals that made this country something that was a stalwart for all nations to look up to, a shining light as a metaphor, degrade into something that's almost 180 degrees from that. So I'm cynical. I don't think that changing the rules is going to do much of anything. And I also could almost guarantee that if or when the rules are changed, they will change them in such a manner that they'll probably affect the little guy and not the big guy. It's already been a trial balloon sent out that the hedging limits that exist will be maintained. Well, that's basically the old Animal Farm, which I was lucky enough to have given to me as an assignment through high school. I had to read Animal Farm, Brave New World, 1984, and everything else.
Absolutely.
And some animals are all animals are created equal.
Some are created more equal than others.
Some are more equal than others. So we have the equal animals, but the banks are more equal than we are, and therefore they can hedge up the kazoo silver that they don't have, but we are only allowed to buy this much.
Sorry.
That's where I'm at. I'm sorry, but I really, there's people out there, and you know their names, and I respect them, and I wish them well, and I hope it has an effect. But basically, early on in that campaign, and I was involved early on, and I have done stuff behind the scenes. I mean, I've done what I feel has the most merit for the amount of time and effort and money involved, but I really have never held it as the number one thing I wanted to get behind, because I really felt strongly that it would be so frustrating in the end that I probably couldn't even take it.
I feel the same way. I think it's just brilliantly stated, because we've turned our back on the rule of law, and those that have been elected to lead us, they're not holding up their end of the bargain in terms of supporting the Bill of Rights and supporting the Constitution. And I absolutely wholeheartedly, you're absolutely right. They will just find an end around. And, maybe with J.P. Morgan being essentially an agent of the Fed in the bond market, maybe there is an endless amount of fiat that will allow them to continue to play this suppression game and settle in, cash settlements at 30% premiums and everything else. And I guess what I'm asking you to give us your opinion on is, do you think it doesn't, maybe it doesn't matter at this point, because we've watched silver go up 80, 90% in 6 months, and we're hearing about the Chinese demanding physical any way they can get it. So maybe it doesn't matter. This thing's going to end, and it's going to end badly for the COMEX and the LBMA.
Well, I'm probably one of the first on record to tell, and it was on I think Financial Sense News Hour years ago, and I certainly don't have the archives of all those shows, but I actually made a statement that I thought it was possible that the CFTC would have, or that the COMEX would have to shut down. And I still believe that. It could happen. And then, of course, people get very upset that, that ends the silver market. And that's, of course, very contrary to common sense and reality. And the reason I say that with authority is simple. I mean, there used to be milk used to be on the exchange, and eggs used to be on the exchange. The last time I checked, you can still buy milk and eggs. It would go to a cash market. The problem is that any coin dealer that sells much at all needs to hedge. It's not in the business of speculating on whether the price of silver is going to be higher today or tomorrow or a week from now or a month from now or a year from now, and same, gold or silver or platinum, palladium for that matter. So they need to off that risk, and that's why the futures markets really are important. But will it close down, will it or not? I don't know. Could it? Absolutely it could. And as you said, are we nearing the end game? We could be. It depends more at this point on what the bigger, I don't like the word, but I'll use it, players are going to do. Mm-hmm. Here's the situation. What I do, I'm much, wealthier in terms of what my silver is worth in fiat than I was 10 years ago.
Right.
But the big guys like the Eric Sprotts and the Stefan Spicers, the Eric at Zurich Continental Bank, I mean, all of the guys that can put in $500 million or $1 billion in the silver market, they're driving that price. When Sprott did his Silver Physical Trust,
right, PSLV,
right, He bought around $600 million worth of silver.
Right.
And during that process, I was involved at a pretty close level, you might say. And I worked with some of their strategy. And it was pretty well known amongst us that it would probably take about 2 months to get that much silver and remove the price about $4. Well, guess what? It took about 2 months to get that much silver and move the price about $4. For all practical purposes, every commercial bar, all the commercial inventory that's used for industry is being held above ground for investment purposes right now. I'm not saying there aren't commercial bars going to industry. There are. What I'm saying is that the remaining silver is being tightly held right now. So any new buying is going to take the price higher. As an example, another $500 million in the silver market might carry it up another $5. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, when you're at the margin, if someone were able to acquire 5 million ounces of silver or 10 million ounces of silver and dump it on the market quickly, you'd probably see the reverse. I don't think you'd see a $5 down day or week, but you might see $2, $3. So we're right at that, what you might call tipping point. And I want everyone to be aware of that. The last thing I want to see is someone get very enthused about the silver market, put all of their money in at 35, and then 2 months from now it's back down to 28 or something. The best approach, if you don't own it, I say buy it. Buy the physical. I'm not saying stocks. I'm not saying futures, options. No, buy the real metal, but save some cash. If it continues up from here, buy it. Buy it on the way up. But give yourself some time, a month, 2 months, every other month, every third month, that type of thinking. On the other hand, if we do get some kind of a correction, profit-taking, then you'll be happy.
Let's get your take on price targets. And the reason I ask is because we hear the good folks at Sprott Funds, including Eric Sprott and John Embry, say $50 for silver by the end of this year. And we're also hearing fellows like John Embry and John Williams say hyperinflation is coming. James Turk says hyperinflation is a lock, 100%. James Turk is saying 100% chance that we will see hyperinflation in the United States of America. So, twofold question. What do you see for silver maybe this year, if you're willing to share that with us? And number two, what is the exit strategy? Because if we're going to see hyperinflation, I can't imagine ever wanting to sell my silver.
Right. Well, great questions. I'm on a record so far, and I'm usually conservative, of 40. So I see at least 40. I'm willing to up it. It certainly could be a lot higher than that, depending on what happens in primarily the geopolitical environment and how many, the big players come in and say, I don't want your fiat, I want to buy more silver. I mean, anyone that comes in, as I said a moment ago, with significant funds, $1 billion or so in the silver market on the physical side is going to move the market again.
Right.
As far as when do we sell, this is a long answer, but I've got to give it. I made a grave mistake in 1980, being in the market just for a few years, and when gold peaked, I thought, maybe I should sell some, buy a car, or do this or do that. And I didn't. The reason I didn't was I was overeducated. I saw interest rates go to about 17.5% on the T-bill under Paul Volcker. And I know that interest rates are a function not only of reward or return, but also of risk. As far as I was concerned, that was mafia money. This is unprecedented in the history of the U.S., at least in recent times, to get that kind of an interest rate. So I thought a currency collapse was imminent. In hindsight, the best thing you could have done was given up your metals and gone to the long bond, locked in, 15, 18%, whatever it was, and held it for 30 years. I mean, as interest rates come down, bond values go up, and you're collecting, huge amount of interest every year.
Absolutely. But to interject, we have no Paul Volcker. We've got the Bernanke, and he's a madman.
No, absolutely. So that's the background. So this time around, I don't want to make the same mistake twice. On the other hand, in a hyperinflationary environment, you don't want to sell the metal. So here's where I stand right now, and subject to change, and this isn't a huge pitch for my newsletter, but anyone that you value and pay a service, money for the service, you're paying them for their best thinking. You're paying them to help you as conditions change. But as it stands today, subject to, modification in the future, the only thing I'm going to sell when I think it's time to bail out will be something that's a paper equivalent. which means even the best mining companies, and we hold some very good mining companies, but at the end of the day, they're still a derivative. But I will not sell the metal. The only way I'm going to sell the metal will be I'll play the banker's game right along with them. I'll go ahead and sell it on the futures or through an options or through one of the ETFs or something like that, where if I'm right and it's a top in quote-unquote fiat terms, I played their game, but I haven't surrendered the metal. I do not plan on selling the metal this time again, and that's how I stand on it today. Now, as a hypothetical, if there were a way to come back to a sound financial system and things were on the up and up and, we've gone through the worst of this thing and I thought that things are really stable, then certainly I would probably consider selling some of the metal or maybe, all of it. I don't think I'd ever sell all of it, but, a substantial portion. So I want to leave myself the option, but the worst thing that can happen is a hyperinflation. A debt liquidating depression is far superior to a hyperinflationary depression. Remember, I use the word depression in both of those sentences. The reason you want a debt liquidating depression is it gets rid of all bad debt. It gets rid of more of the Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns. It takes down the JPMs. It takes down the AIGs. It takes down all this funny money derivative nonsense that has crippled the entire world financial system. They go bye-bye. And what's left remaining is the real wealth, and that gets redistributed to people that have real money. And in a hyperinflationary environment, you cannot rebuild capital markets because all of the trust is gone. And when that happens, it gets done eventually, but you could lose a generation, and I don't want to see that. I've got 2 kids. I don't know if you have kids or not.
I do.
Yeah, the older I get, the bigger my heart becomes, and I'm just sharing a little personal stuff with you. But, I am so, it's not even anger. I'm appalled,
disgust.
I guess. Disgust, appalled. I don't know what else I can do. I feel like I haven't done enough, and yet I'm the guy that works this many hours every day trying to get the word out. It's not buy silver. Certainly that's part of it, but it's a lot bigger than that, like we talked about earlier in your program.
Well, David, I just want to thank you on behalf of all my viewers and subscribers. We so appreciate your perspective. How can folks find you online? What's the best way to sign up for the Morgan Report or get to your website?
Thank you so much. It was one of the better interviews I've done in a while. Get to the site, silver-investor.com, or type in David Morgan Silver in any good search engine, and you'll find the site. And I want to encourage everybody to go ahead and get on our free email list. I give you the 10 rules of silver investing that I wrote many years ago, but they're applicable to a new investor, a seasoned investor, and these are free and fun, and it's a good way to kind of review how to approach the silver market without getting burned, and also how to leverage yourself safely as this precious metals market continues.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Good night.